Hey guys, Professor Scullin here. I'm going to demonstrate how to make your Egyptian Shabti. I made the clay recipe that I gave to you guys on Blackboard, and it's a little sticky. And so when dough is sticky in baking, then you work it and knead it, and sometimes you even need some flour into it, but since I don't have flour, I'm just going to work it. If you see my hands and your hands look like this, then your dough is too sticky. If it's really, really wet and you just cannot, it's just sticky, then do add a little extra flour and knead it in evenly so you don't get clumps of flour. So mine is pretty close to being ready to be used. And so I find it to be like super pliable and super workable. So in the Egyptian slideshow, the last page, and hopefully you use that for your Sketchbook 11 drawing. And I would suggest having your Sketchbook 11 drawing out so that as you build your sculpture, you will have your guide. You really need that there to tell you what to do. So you're going to start with the head, and I'm going to guess that our character is going to be about 8 inches tall. Now we know that the figure is supposed to be 6.5 heads tall. So whatever your head size is, whatever you start with, that is kind of your guiding line. So I'm making a 3-dimensional object, an egg head. And if you can start with that and lay that down as your starting shape, that's going to be good. A head is rounder on the top, and it comes to kind of a rounded point on the bottom. So a nice little alien, that's what we're looking for. Next, I'm going to work on the body, which we know neck plus torso is 2 heads tall. So if this is 1 head tall, then 2 head talls would be 1, 2 of those. Then I need 3.5 for legs, so we do need to move up a little bit. He's going to be a little bit taller than 8 inches, I do believe, which is fine. So I'm working the clay, and I'm going to do that torso, which was kind of a rounded square. And a torso can be broader at the shoulders, like a trapezoid, and then more narrow at the waist. This is so soft. Okay, so there's 1.5 heads tall. I can kind of see that naturally. And I'm gonna just set it here and try not to touch it for a little while, because as you touch it, it just stretches out. I probably would have benefited from a lot more flour. Okay, so I'm going to set my torso there, but I'm going to stretch it down just a little bit. I brought some household tools. This is a skewer that you use for shish kebab, and it has a nice point on it. You could also use like a metal shish kebab. You could use a metal knife in your kitchen. If you have plastic knives, you can use plastic tools. I brought a fork for scoring if I need to blend things. And then I just looked around and found this butter knife or cheese knife, and then a spoon. And of course your hands are your best tool, of course. But sometimes to reach hard to reach places, to blend things in, to attach pieces, we need these other tools. So whenever I attach 2 separate pieces, so we know that the head was separate from the body, and we know that we need a neck in there. And so I'm gonna use the skewer to make just that little bit of separation so then I can form a neck. And so I'll add my neck. In clay, we do a 3-step process. It's called score, slip, and then blend. And scoring is taking like a fork and you rough up the surface of the clay. So I would rough. And then I would put slip, which is glue. So I would get clay and I would add water to it and put it in a dish, and that would become my glue. But because this clay is so soft and moist, and it's working so nicely, I think everything is just going to stick the moment I put it down. So I'm going to throw my neck in there. I'm going to use my shaping tools to press it into position. So I want it to be deeper than my chin. And so, I may have to do some finger shaping. Keep your fingers dry. I kind of want to use the end of the skewer. Seems like that could push it back so it's not lumping out and being a bigger neck than my chin. I want my chin to stick up higher. That's a pretty good start. Okay, that's my torso and my neck, and I'm just gonna leave it like that for now. It's so soft, it just needs to air dry a little bit in order for it to actually work nicely. Now there was this question about how do I make my legs 3 heads high? What does she mean? Well, I go up here, I measure my head, and I go 1, 2, 3 of those. So the bottom of my feet, or I mean the top of my legs, where the top of my feet hits the legs, has to hit on that line right there. So that's my goal length for getting my body proportionate. If it's proportionate, then we can start making it look believable. And so that's kind of the exciting part. Now, some of you went to the store and bought Sculpey or a commercial clay, and just go ahead and follow the instructions on it for baking it. Otherwise, the rest of us, we're just going to air dry these. Once they are air dried, if they don't crumble on you, which they shouldn't because of the glue in the body of the clay, I think it will stay solid. We could actually paint these afterwards, and that would be a great goal for us. So I'm going to go wider at the hips and taper at the base. And the rule of pinky is kind of my thickness rule. So if I were to put this in a kiln, I would need to make sure that my clay is not thicker than my pinky. Now, not all pinkies are created equal. I know some of you have much smaller pinkies than me. Others have much larger pinkies. But the honest thing is that range of human finger is about the right measurement. So it's not a rule of thumb. It's a rule of pinky. So I'm going to go for hips here. You can go for hips, or if you're a gentleman and you prefer the gentleman look, you can go for a very straight fit. Down here, I need to get straighter, of course. And you can see that this clay, I can stretch it out and add the feet. The feet are going to be 3-dimensional. They're going to pop up on top here, like they're going to stick up. And so you're going to kind of add those at the bottom. Now in the drawing, you noticed that I drew each arm separately as a cylinder, an upper arm versus a lower arm. So I'm going to go ahead and make cylindrical shapes, and I'm going to work the clay for a little while to see if I can get some of that moisture out. And notice how this is all lumpy, and I need to go back and stretch it and fix it. We'll do that when it's a little drier, so you don't need to worry about that now. So as I look at it, I can take my tools and I can cut. Like the shoulder just got a little too broad right there. I would prefer that broadness to be made from the arm. And so I'm gonna go ahead and make cuts. So feel free to cut things with your butter knife or whatever tool you have. So arms are gonna attach on the side here on the shoulder, but then cross up and over the top of the torso. And that got stretched a little thin at the bottom. But the good news is it's so sticky. I can actually blend and blend. We don't have to do any scoring and slipping if your clay is this wet. So score, slip by adding gluey wet clay, and then blend by blending, smoothing. We're going to work on blending out that clay. We're kind of getting flat. And it's okay that it's flat on the back. Back of your Shabti can lay down. Okay, now I'm going to do the second arm. And it's actually kind of cool that I got a dent right there, because you have to do all these funny tricks in clay construction where you have to break this arm in order to overlap, because when our arms overlap, they touch like this, but in clay, the clay would bend over and it would look really weird. And so what we're going to do is we're going to cut a notch here so that the arm can overlap it. It's one of the smoke and mirror illusions that we use in clay building to create the illusion that the arms are overlapping. So attach out here on the outside and then come up onto the body, go into that hole or that groove, and then cut it off at the elbows. Oh, you know what? I'm doing that completely wrong. Never mind the crossover. That's later. See, this is the good news. I'm showing you how to fix mistakes. I always make bad mistakes. Then you guys are like, oh, thank you. The upper arm should actually come straight down. And arms are long, and you guys probably don't trust me, but look at where my finger is. This is where the arm hits the body because we're like orangutans. So if this has to be half of that distance, and so half of that distance coming straight down off the shoulder is about there. And I'll pop this guy off too. The good news is I can just blend this in, give it a belly or a chest, and now what was once an arm has now become part of the torso. And I can blend, blend, blend. Just use one smooth finger with gentle, slow, careful strokes to blend in your clay. That's all that's required. I think sometimes we think, oh, I've got to work so hard to blend. You don't. Just gently press it over time. One finger will help it really blend nicely. Okay, so I'm going to roll my second cylinder about the same length as that one. Attaches on the outside. It's going to be the lower arm that's going to cross over the torso. I don't know what I was thinking. I forgot to look at the model. But you guys all need to. You will. Be good examples. All right, so there we go. We've got our second upper arm. And they're looking mighty short. And notice that they're thick. They're not skinny little spaghetti arms. They're nice and thick. They've got some bulk to them. I can maybe trim this one down a little bit later on. They've got some bulk to them because arms are substantial. They're not skinny little noodles. No way. So you'll go back and reshape things over and over again. But for now, we're just going to build the torso to this point. And then as it dries, we'll start doing the cuts and the details, which will be nice. It's so very sticky. Probably should have checked it before I brought it up to my studio. It needed a little flour. So if you guys will keep some flour nearby, if yours is really sticky, I think you'll benefit from having some flour. Okay, so I'm just stretching that out. Now that's the lower arm without the hand. For now, the hands are just going to be little balls. So I'm just going to blend that in, attach it well. Eventually that elbow will lift and be really nice. Here's my little ball. Now I don't do any editing on these videos, so when I do the camera shake like that, I'm super sorry. You're going to have to forgive me that because I don't know how to edit as of yet. Okay, nice big hand. I love it. Later I'll trim it down to a better shape, but some things will have to be kind of abstract. If it's the right shape and the right size in the right location, it can be very abstract, which means it's based on reality, but it's very simple. I mean, these are very simple arms. This is a very simple egg head, very simple neck that needs some trimming. He's like all neck. And that's the good news of having the sharper tools. You can start shaping and trimming things like that and creating a more realistic look. I'm just going to work the clay, dry it out a little, because it's so very sticky. And I tried to follow the recipe exactly. And I honestly put in some extra flour already. So on a warm day like today, just sitting around in my house, you know, maybe I should have refrigerated it. It didn't, you know, set up. I'm just making it warmer and stickier. Okay, so I'm not drying it out. So I'm going to try to get this arm here to present a little bit of a gap so that this arm can lay over the top of it. No, I'm just going to have to use new dryer clay. So I created the notch for this arm, lower arm, to lay into, so I didn't get a big bulge and a bubble that looks kind of funny. The whole thing looks funny. It's all about fun. So now I'm going to try to put the handball And I'm just pulling from my extra clay because the amount of clay that the recipe made will allow you to make 2. Okay, so I'm just going to spend some time doing some shaping and blending. I can feel it's already getting like a surface dryness, like a skin around it, which is kind of cool because that tells me that it become pliable soon. I'm also going to try to start doing some extra shaping. Like I try to make everything look like an object. And so I want this to look like a leg. And so I'm going to draw a line to make the split, but then I'm going to take a tool and I'm going to shape it so it's a shape of a leg, not just a line down the center of where legs should be. I'm going to actually shape it. This is about making things look 3-dimensional. It's rounded now. It has form. And you'll notice that not all the mummies, the Shabti examples from the museum and such, some of them were mummified, wrapped, and so they wouldn't have the center leg split. But because you're doing a combination of Egyptian inspiration but then your own personal thing, you can make that split. It doesn't have to be a skirt looking mummy wrap. It can actually look like jeans or pants or your favorite pants. Maybe a pair of jeans. I'm thinking I'm going to go for a pair of jeans. So I'm going to start with some sort of a belt area. And I'm going to start to draw and shape things into here. Maybe some pockets. A zipper. Flap. So I draw it first, and you can draw with the skewer too. Skewer is nice. Or like a steak knife or a knife that you cut with. And then you can shape with like a plastic tool that has a rounded edge, or even this metal tool. Metal's tricky because it is a little bit sticky, but sometimes when it starts to dry, the clay won't stick to the metal. And so I can shape that, make this part pop out and this part lay flat. So it's not just a line of clay and it's all the same surface. I create depth and space. Okay, so you can use this as a blending tool. Now I can go up under here and make sure my arms are fully attached. So I'm going to put a, there's like a crack there, there's a gap. So I'm going to use the tool to clean that up. So craftsmanship, you know, it's going to be difficult with this homemade clay because obviously it's very soft. My batch is very soft and flexible, and what it's doing is it's floating, flowing, it's spreading out, it's stretching, it's losing some of its proportion, and that's fine. But do make an attempt to make your proportions kind of work. And so what I'm going to do is start shaping it. Eventually, I will be adding my personal objects. If you were interested in doing a headdress, I get lots of questions about headdresses. So build it like a big old piece of hair, but remember it would be cloth laying on top of their head. You start with the bandana first, which is going to be smaller. So you take a piece and you lay it across the top of the head. And then you lay this way. And some of them come down in front. And some of them you guys like to do shorter, but it's actually going to lay flat. And because it's cloth, it will get that flat look. So it attaches to the top, but then it comes down on the sides and lays flat, which I'm going to make a little thicker. So it comes up on top of the shoulder and overlaps. Overlapping is a good thing. Now I'm going to switch up to the tool because my fingers are too sticky. Maybe the wood is less sticky. Nope, it's just sticky, period. So again, you can work it, or you can pause and go take a snack break and come back to it so it's a little drier, has some evaporation time. And then I want to extend that because I want it to be kind of a longer headdress. And so I'm going to add to the bottom and overlap the shoulder, and that's the beauty. Clay allows you to add, subtract, and I want you to do both for sure. Let's talk about proportions on the face. Hopefully you got it correctly in the drawing stage of your sketchbook 11. But we need to make sure that we draw right here on the surface of the clay with correct proportions as well. And so I'm going to go through the face and then I'm going to call it done for now. And then I'm going to have you guys kind of move on from there. Okay, so from top here to the bottom of the chin here, which we've lost a little bit of chin. Press that neck back. We go halfway between. So halfway between, I'm going to draw a line all the way across the clay. That's going to be my eye line. And then I'm going to do a central line coming down. So right now it looks a little scary. The eyes are centered ovals or footballs or almonds. Right there. There's 5 across. So there is, and they're overlapping that line I just drew. There's 1 eye length in the middle, in between here. 1 eye length here. 1 eye length to the end. So that helps you get the sizing correct. You don't want enormous eyes. You want proportionate eyes, or you don't want tiny little eyes. So I just dig holes for the eyes, and then that makes them look dark. And then for the nose, I make a triangle wedge, which will have to be so tiny. And with the sticky clay, it will be a challenge, but I'm going to try it anyway. I'm going to put a wedge nose right here. So it goes right between the eyes. The nose length is from the eye to the chin, halfway. So the bottom of the nose has to hit right here on a halfway point. And I'm going to shape that with a tool so it doesn't stick to my finger. So I'm trying to make it an isosceles wedge triangle. Right now it looks like Gonzo's beak from Sesame Street, or Muppets, Muppets. So let's try to shape it like a triangle. So narrow at the top, and then wider down at the nostril base, and then get it to attach to that face. Open up the eyes again and dig them deep. The deeper you dig the eyes, the better, because that will create a shadow, and that shadow will create the illusion of a dark brown or dark blue or dark hazel eye. And so just a hole creates that cool illusion. Okay, it's hard to get that nose to attach. It is drying out on me. The mouth is going to be below the nose, halfway between the nose and the chin, and it's just slightly longer than the base of the nose. So don't go crazy with a big old long mouth. Our mouths aren't that big. So there should be space down here for the chin, and there should be a gap between the nose and the upper lip. And you may not be able to shape lips, but I'm surely going to give it a try. So I'm just kind of poking at the clay, just making a basic attempt. Otherwise, just make it straight across the top and round across the bottom. So it's not quite an almond, it's like a slice of watermelon. Round on the bottom, flat across the top. And then you pinch away the clay. See if you can get it to be a good shape. Oh, I ended up with a lumpy cheek trying to pull eyes out of there. So this is the basic essentials. I, of course, need to draw my hieroglyphics. And you can do that down the legs. You can do that down here on the shoes or the feet. You can do that kind of anywhere on your character that you want. You also need to make it personal in 2 ways. So if your character is holding something, like I showed you in the examples, the baby bottles, different things, have them holding that. So that might mean that their hand is overlapping, let's say a book. I'm going to make a flat square. And probably shape it into a square later. And then I'm going to tuck that under the hand. And there you are holding a book. And so you'll end up shaping things like that. The important thing is to have an experience with clay. This is not ideal. It's not the perfect way. But I want you to spend maybe 2 hours building a clay character. You're going to shape it as best as you can. You're going to work it as it dries out. Mine is still so wet and it's super hot in my house, and so it's just kind of melting, but I'm going to let it dry right there, and that will be my clay project. All right, thanks guys.